My name is Rebecca Mueller, and I am a marriage and family therapist intern in the state of California. I work with Sync Counseling Center under the supervision of Dr. Curtis Miller, licensed marriage and family therapist. I currently see families and particularly women and also children who are coming out of divorce. And part of those divorces may or may not have abuse attached to them, but it is something that I deal with often with my clients on a weekly basis. So the definition of abuse can be 1,000 different things depending on where you get the definition from and what website you're looking at. But the general definition of abuse, just in a broad term, is any treatment of another that entails cruelty and violence. And normally with a sense of abuse, there is a repeated and a regular pattern of that abuse that happens over and over again. I like to take that definition and kind of broaden it a little bit, just because it does not sometimes seem to be enough to understand really what's happening, especially when it comes to emotional abuse. And so the definition that I like to use is any act that limits, restricts, infringes upon, demands, or undermines the personhood of another. And when I talk about personhood, what I'm really meaning is your freedom, your choice, the ability to think and to reason and to understand situations. It may be something that is infringing upon relationships with other people. And it also is just your personal space and not being able to have that personal space from another person. Abuse can look, again, a ton of different ways. Main categories would be physical abuse, which obviously is any kind of battering that is happening from one person to another. And then you've got emotional abuse, you've got verbal, you have financial, sexual, and even spiritual abuse between, and what we're really talking about is intimate partners. So I'm asked by clients, why did this happen to me? How did this ever occur? And my general answer to them will be, it's not you, it's the abuser. And at the center of the abuser, whether the abuser knows it or not, is this idea of power and control. And they will do anything to keep that power and control. And when I say anything, I mean really anything under the sun, whether they are very aware of it in their conscience, or it's this subconscious need for control or subconscious need to know, where did my partner go? What are they doing? What are they spending? They can't spend that. And I'm just using financial as an example. But the power and control will always be at the center of the manipulation and the abuse in general. A lot of the times, clients will want to focus on the abuser when they are the victim. And I don't want to do that in this blog, and I don't like to do that in therapy, because the abuser is not in therapy and the abuser is not searching for treatment and for help and support to work through their change. So part of this, I want to encourage you, if you're watching this and you're in an abusive situation, I want you to start focusing on you. Because part of the manipulation is that your partner has convinced you that you are not worth anything and that you are not worth focusing on. And so that's why I really wanted to keep this blog really specific to the victim of abuse. We all know that if a relationship was all bad, it would be a no-brainer, and we'd leave. The cycle of abuse is the way that the abuser keeps the victim or the target of the abusive behavior in the relationship. It'd be very easy to walk away if we were like, he was a jerk or she was manipulative all the time. But we get into relationships because there's something good about them. They're charming, they're witty, they're funny, they love me, they take care of me, they protect me, and then all of a sudden, as those things are established and we get into this relationship with this understanding that this is love, all of a sudden those things become controlling or filled with jealousy, or why are they going through my phone? Or why are they going through my emails? What is happening? Why can't I have access to my money? Why can't I leave when I want? Why can't I wash the dishes the way I want to? And so this cycle of abuse tends to confuse the victim. So you have 4 stages of the cycle of abuse. The first one is this tension building period, where things just seem off in the relationship. They're glitches. You don't understand what's happening if you're the victim. You think like, gosh, why is he so in a bad mood? Or why is she so off today? And that tension tends to build and build and build. And it can build for weeks, it can build for hours, it can build for even months. And then you have the second stage, which is the explosion. There is something that happens that is catastrophic. And I don't mean like I've thrashed the house, but something that's catastrophic enough to your personhood. Go back to that first definition of abuse, that personhood of you. And after that explosion, somehow there has to be contrition. There has to be forgiveness. There has to be some kind of coming together, or else you just leave after the explosion. And sometimes that contrition comes from the abuser to the victim. And they will say, I'm so sorry, that will never happen again. I'll never do it. I was just out of control. You said this, and so I reacted this way. But I want to say that sometimes it comes from the victim to the abuser. And the victim will say to the abuser, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z to you. I should have known better. You've told me before. I'm so sorry. And what that contrition and then that so-called forgiveness does is move the couple into a period, what some researchers have called the honeymoon. I don't necessarily think that there's ever really a honeymoon in abusive relationships, but we return back to neutral. It's not good, it's not bad, it's neutral. It's the way that we've done life. So back to what's called normal for that couple. And again, normal looks numerous different ways for it. The cycle will repeat, and then you'll be in that honeymoon period, and then all of a sudden you'll start noticing that something shifted. And when something shifts, you're back into the tension building part of the cycle, to the explosion, back to the contrition and forgiveness, back to the honeymoon, back to the tension. And so it's a constant cycle. You're always somewhere in the cycle if you're in an abusive relationship. Emotional abuse is also called psychological abuse. So it's really abuse of the mind. It's the abuse of how one thinks, how one understands reality. So I'm going to take you through a lot of different ways that could look. And just because it looks so different depending on the abuser, and also what works on the victim. Some of these things don't work on the victim, and the victim is able to stand up and say, no, I will not accept that. And then the abuser says, okay, that doesn't work, so I'm going to try something else. So if you don't catch all of these, they are listed underneath the blog, so it's there. But I would say, number one, you're constantly looking for threats, coercion, some kind of instilling of fear. If you can answer the question, have I ever been afraid of my partner? If you can say yes, I would encourage you just to listen further to this, because in a healthy relationship, there should be no fear. So we've got the fear. We've got a relationship that's creating dependency. Like, you can only depend on me. I'm the one that's going to save you. Don't call your mother. Don't call your sister. Don't call your best friend. Only me. In the fifth one, there is restriction of movement and relationships and behavior. So now I'm no longer allowed to go out with my friends. I'm not allowed to stop someplace on the way home from work because I'm always reporting to you. And with that is the isolation. The isolation is really, really key for an abuser to do for their victim, because that keeps the victim from understanding that there's reality outside the relationship. And so this isolation, even with technology, checking texts, checking your emails, insisting on passwords to all your accounts, those can be part of this emotional abuse. Then we've got blame shifting and guilt tripping. It's not my fault, it's yours. We've got denying. That didn't happen. What are you talking about? You're crazy. We've got withholding information from the other partner, and also minimizing. And the new word really is gaslighting. So gaslighting means that I'm going to use whatever manipulative tactic I can to convince you you're the insane one. I know that I'm right, but are you right? Maybe not. And so then the victim constantly sits there and asks him or herself, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not right. Maybe they're right. And then starts the manipulation in the mind game. We also can call it crazy making, where the victim feels actually crazy. I've got things like lying, redefining past events. There is a humiliation and defaming your character, whether in public or in private. Any general disrespect that is just blatant disrespect in a way that even sarcasm can be in that disrespect of your personhood. We've got ignoring and giving the silent treatment, yelling, crossing boundaries, having no respect for boundaries, and double standards. What's good for me is not good for you. And I'm not going to let, but I can stop, but you can't stop. And these double standards of this unequal treatment. Again, in a healthy relationship, you are going to treat someone as you want to be treated, and you are going to give to that person as you would like to receive. And that's a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship is not going to be full of fear. In fact, a healthy relationship is actually going to empower me to be more myself and empower the other person to be more himself. And at that point, we become stronger as a couple because we are more together in our usness, in our togetherness. The effects of emotional abuse, particularly on the victim, it can start in the short term, and it can actually go all the way to this long-term kind of, my brain has actually changed in the way that I receive information and the way that I understand the information, interpret it, and then move the information out and decide how I'm going to behave and act. And so it begins with just this general confusion with the victim. The victim is going to start saying, wow, maybe I'm off. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I heard something different. But I don't think I said that, but he said I said that, or she said I said that, so maybe I did, maybe I'm not hearing things. And it ends up being this kind of shaming part in this first stage of I love this person wouldn't lie to me, so it's me. It's obviously me. And then because we want to avoid that as victims, we want to not cause our partner more chaos and we want to avoid, we then become really preoccupied with what they're thinking or what they're feeling. Are you okay? What's going on? How are you? What can I do? Can I do something better for you? What can I do to make it better? And we tend to ignore ourselves. So we shut off our emotional awareness, and we become so consumed with our partner because that's how we are going to be okay. And that's actually the definition of codependency. And so that codependent piece in this is really strong. I'm going to live to make you okay because then I'll be okay. So as I become preoccupied, what I'm going to start doing is start changing how I behave. I'm going to start doing the dishes different because you don't like how I do the dishes. I'm going to make sure that I always spend money this way. I'm going to make sure that I'm always following your rules. Sometimes that's really passive, okay, don't have an opinion. Where do you want to go out to eat? Wherever you want to go to eat. What do you want to do this weekend? Wherever you want to go. And you start losing sight of what you would like. The other thing is we become over-compliant just to keep the peace. Yes, I'd love to do that. I'm so excited, even though inside you're saying, oh, it's the last thing I want to do. We start giving away our power as a person. So go back to the definition of personhood. Start giving that away for the sake of our partner. And again, it's all to keep peace, but we become really stuck. And so as we realize, even if we're changing our thinking, we are preoccupied with our partner, we're changing our behavior, you're going to notice that you're still back in that tension building phase. So no matter what you do, your abusive partner is still in that cycle of abuse, because remember, it's all about that person's internal makeup about power and control. So nothing you do will stop that desire to have power and control. So as you've changed, now you're realizing that wasn't good enough, and you start walking on eggshells. As you walk on eggshells, you know, as you turn the key to get into the house, you can feel it. You can feel the atmosphere. You know where they are. You know where they're sitting. You know how they're sitting. Are they sitting with alcohol? How are they? Are their eyebrows, pushed together and furrowed, and or do they look super happy and super jovial? And you're wondering, like, why? How did that happen? So as you walk on eggshells, then it goes a layer deeper, and it starts to really affect your mental health and well-being. You become anxious. There's fear, hypervigilance, which means you always know where the other person is. You always know what's going on. You're trying to avoid them, or you're trying to avoid the fear that you feel intrinsically. And you might find yourself even jumping, like they walk into the room and you didn't even know, and you jump. There's something in your body that's telling you, like, this is not safe. This is not okay. And there's just a general feeling of dread. You may find yourself becoming more sluggish. You may find yourself becoming really listless in this relationship. And then you have relationships with others, say your coworkers or your family, and you may be becoming irritable with those people because those people are safe for you. They're going to love you no matter what. And you might be becoming irritable, even argumentative with those other people that you think, I don't usually argue with my mom, but I'm arguing with my mom because I can't argue with my partner. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to argue with somebody else who will let me argue. And then as you sit there, your confidence is eroded. Your identity, your self-worth, your esteem is all eroded into, I can't make this person happy. My home is not my home. I don't feel comfortable in my home. I'm turning into a different person with other relationships. Who am I? And then with that comes the shame. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. That leads to depression and exhaustion. It can lead to physical symptoms of depression and anxiety, a lack of interest in life where you just feel there. You're not involved. You're not invested in your reality, but you're just there. And so that can be the cycle downwards and spiral downwards down the drain that really takes away who you are. And who you are is so important and vital and unique that we don't want that to go away. And so that's what the effects of emotional abuse. Emotional abuse may not be the bruises on the outside of the skin. It may not be the harrowing moments of things being flung across the room or any type of external abuse, but it erodes your mind, how you see reality, and more importantly, how you see yourself. And that is the danger of emotional abuse. If you think that you are in an abusive relationship and there's a part of you that's wondering, am I not? The first step to healing and to having clarity about that is actually awareness. I always say to some of my clients, if your daughter was going through this, or if your son was going through this, or a best friend, what would you tell them? Sometimes it helps to have a third person perspective and you say, oh, well, I would tell them to go. I would tell them this is not healthy. Well, then why are you staying? And what are those reasons that you're staying for? Trust your gut. There is something in us that wants to survive. We all want to survive, but we want to survive in really healthy ways. And so there's something inside of you that's already telling you, this is not good for you. This is not the relationship that you dreamed of and that you deserve. And so trust that awareness. I think once you find awareness, then I would encourage you to find some kind of support. This is where therapy is an amazing resource for you. You've been in a relationship that tells you what you think, how you perceive reality, and in a therapy session, you get to sit with a therapist who is non-biased, who's going to hear you, who is going to affirm you. And if you don't have a therapist that affirms you, please find another therapist that affirms you. But a therapist that's going to walk through this with you and see life through your eyes. It's so vital and so important to healing, because this is how we get our feet back on the ground as victims. We get our feet back onto, wow, this is reality. And this is what it is. You can find groups, social groups in your community. You can also find groups in your spiritual body, whether you're part of a church or a synagogue or a mosque, whatever it may be. There is groups within those that would also offer you support. And number 3, we're just working on rebuilding you. We want to rebuild your voice. We want to hear your voice. We want to instill back your power. Take away that fear. Put in your power. What are potentials? What moves could you make? What differences? How can you protect yourself? And part of that is going to be boundaries. Boundaries are so vital to actually withstanding a relationship or deciding to leave the relationship. Boundaries are going to keep you and your personhood safe. Now, notice that I didn't tell you had to leave the relationship, because nobody can convince you of that unless you are ready to go. You are in charge of that decision. But what is so healthy is for you to know actually what the relationship is. Look at it for what it is, not what you hope it to be, not what the other person is promising you it will be. Look at it for what it actually is. And if you decide to go, just know that you are going to need that to support, to get your feet back on the ground. That support will be so vital for you.